It's actually my favorite bookstore. I come here all the time. And it always occurred to me that when people write these stories, there's historical books and there's fictitious books of characters, and sometimes they combine them. But I never could find one over what's to me the most amazing period in humanity, which is right at about the birth and death of Jesus, when Roman was the most powerful empire of the time, maybe to this day still, and the Jewish people were a small nomadic tribe that had gotten big, had kings, shrunk down, and sort of lived on their own autonomously for thousands of years. And so this giant Roman Empire comes to conquer Judea. And as they conquer Judea, they're forced to fight these Jewish people that refuse to give up. They refuse to give in to Roman ways, the Roman gods, the Roman civilization. Ultimately, a great battle ensued, and my book is about Masada to some degree, in terms of the battle the Jewish people fought to maintain their autonomy. It's a great story, and the beginning of the story is Rome comes to conquer Judea, and the end of the story is no one survives Masada, and can I keep your attention throughout that story? And that's really my goal. Knowing the beginning and the end. So what really is amazing to me, and why I wanted to write this story, was it is not uncommon for a conquered people to assimilate and change their culture. But what's amazing about this time period is the Romans are the ones that assimilated and changed their culture, even though they conquered. And they did that through Christianity, or what I term in my book, the Messiachs, which are the precursors of Christianity. The book has some historical information in the beginning and in the end. The historical information is maybe a little drier because it's really historical information to give you context of the story. The story, which begins on page 6 or so, has the fictitious characters of the Maccabees. And anyone that knows the story of Hanukkah knows the name of the Maccabees. They were the guerrilla tribal leaders that fought the, at the time, Assyrian Greeks and overcame a much larger army and invented guerrilla warfare. A lot of their tactics are actually still studied. And they are the Maccabees, and they were wiped out at this time period by Herod, who was the king, the puppet king Rome put in place. So when they wiped out the Maccabees, my fictitious character that drives the story is the last of the Maccabees. He is the fighter for the Jewish people. And then, of course, I have a fictitious character on Rome's side. And the book is written in a lot of first-person narrative, which is a little bit different style than a lot of people may be used to reading. It's just how my brain works, and it made for a more exciting story, in my opinion, to have the first-party context come out. And so the Roman leader, Quintus Gaius Phallus, who's second in command and helps lead Rome as the Primus Pilus, second in command of the Roman legions, fights these Jewish rebels, and there comes to a climax near the end where they meet each other. And hopefully you'll enjoy reading where the Roman gives his perspective of how he's trying to change and help the world by bringing Rome's civilization and order to the world, and the Maccabees' perspective that the world was quite ordered already and Rome is bringing destruction and chaos to an ordered society, and their difference of opinions. And out of that, like I said, comes Christianity, because it's happened in 72 AD, 30 years or so after Jesus had died and his word was spread. And how did these early Christians, or again Messiachs as I termed them, because the Council of Nicaea, hundreds of years later, which canonized Christianity, had not occurred yet under Constantine. So at this point, they were people that were following Jesus, believed in Jesus, but it wasn't formal yet. There was no ritualistic decree to Christianity at this time. So these Messiachs come about, and they don't turn just the conquered Jewish people, but they turn the Romans. And in fact, more Romans than Jews turned to Christianity. And how did that happen? When they won. I thought that was amazing. It's an amazing period in humanity. And I wanted to write a story that was both telling, informational, historically accurate, and fun to read. And like all great stories, in my opinion, there's a love story. The love story is what gives the characters the depth to want to do better. Because without love, what's the point? Fighting's easy. Loving's the hard part. As I'm sure my wife would attest. 18 years of marriage. So, in Fall of the Fortress, I do explain and go through a bit of history to start. It wants you to follow the Roman legions as they march through into Judea. And so I marked a small section that I thought would kind of highlight the style and how I perceive the times. I am Primus Pilus of the first cohort, of the most honored legion in Rome, and now I must travel to this God's forsaken wasteland, west of Syria, called Ivdea. What have I done to merit this course of action? How could one small client kingdom give Rome such problems that they need to march us across the empire? Has Pompey the Great not already subdued these people and subjugated this land? Why must I bring my entire legion, the 10th Fretensis, to this corner of the empire? Are all 6,500 of my legionnaires really required for such a small problem? A cohort or two should certainly have been enough. Instead, I'm marching my men through sand and sun to a foreign post in a remote and barbaric desert to finish putting down a small rebellion that few know of back in Rome or elsewhere in the empire. I certainly know well enough not to question Rome or my legate, Marcus Ulpius Trajanus. After 18 years in the legions, I know my place. It is one of honor. Primus Pilus, leader of the first cohort, second in command of the 10th Legion of Rome. The first cohort is the finest line in the legion formation, and by the grace of gods, I have seen more action than most men alive, and I've been promoted to my place of honor based on merit. So that is the position of Quintus Gaius Valus, the Roman Primus Pilus. It's his belief that Rome, which is superior, is coming to this barbaric land. What I think drives a lot of the story is the conflict between the perception of the Roman Primus Pilus and the perception of Jedediah Maccabee, the last of the Maccabees. And so my picture of Masada shows the climactic final and battle of the Jews and Romans. Masada, which still exists today, is a diamond-shaped plateau mountain. It is unscalable on three sides, straight sheer cliffs. And so there's one narrow path which the Jews used to arm and mount Masada. And of course it's ruins now, it's 2,000 years old. But there were barracks, there was a modern bath, there was hot rooms, hot baths, cold baths. There were workshops. This was, my imagination takes hold in the book, and hopefully you'll enjoy it, an entire civilization on top of this mountaintop for 2 years, where 963 men, women, and children fled Jerusalem, which was conquered by the Romans, came to Masada for their last stand, and Rome sent 12,000 of its finest soldiers against 963 men, women, and children, and they held out for 2 years. For 2 years they fought the Romans off, until ultimately Roman engineering, the finest in the world, overcame them. And it is hopefully that ending which will let the reader feel what they feel today if you ever go to Masada, which I was lucky enough to go to when I was younger. And the famous words spoken on top of Masada are Shenit Masada lo tipol. Shenit Masada lo tipol. Masada shall never fall again. They're words that today the armed forces of Israel, the Mossad, the secret service of Israel, when they graduate academy, they still climb Masada at dawnbreak, which takes 4 to 5 hours. They get to the top, and before they are given their posts and positions, wherever they are in the world, they stand on top of Masada as a class and they shout out, Shenit Masada lo tipol. It still has that much meaning 2,000 years later. And what kind of story inspires 2,000 years later that kind of feeling? And hopefully that's been captured in my novel. And so that is what I presented tonight. I thank you so much for coming. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer what I can. Otherwise, the novels, of course, are for sale. They go to a good cause, and I'd be happy to sign any of them that are purchased. But otherwise, if there's questions, I'd be happy.
If not, we have more wine.